The broken treaty, the crystalline walls of the Galactic Trade Council chambers had never witnessed such chaos. Chancellor Zixthara's translucent form flickered with angry red light. As she processed the intelligence reports flowing across her neural interface, around the massive circular chamber, representatives from 14 different species sat in stunned silence, their various forms of communication creating a symphony of concern. "Show me the data again," Zixthara commanded, her voice resonating through the chamber's acoustic crystals. The holographic display materialized in the center of the room, casting blue light across the assembled delegates. What they saw defied every calculation they had made about the human species over the past 50 years. Commander Thisis of the Reptilian Confederacy was the first to break the silence. His scaled head moved slowly from side to side as he studied. "The numbers, this cannot be accurate. Our intelligence networks have monitored Earth for decades. They have shown us nothing like this." The display showed a fleet composition that made even the most militaristic species uncomfortable. Over 2,000 vessels of various classes, from massive dreadnoughts to swift corvettes, all bearing the distinctive blue and white markings of Earth's unified fleet. But the numbers were not what disturbed the Council most. It was the technology. "Look at these energy signatures," whispered Ambassador Cleonox through her environmental suit's speaker system. The aquatic being's tentacles pressed against the reinforced glass as she studied the data. "These ships are using fusion drives we did not know humans possessed. Their weapon systems show signatures we cannot identify." Zixthara's form shifted to a deeper shade of red. As Chancellor of the Trade Council, she had personally overseen the human integration protocols. Earth had been classified as a Tier 3 civilization suitable for basic resource extraction and limited manufacturing. Their technology was supposed to be centuries behind the galactic standard. "Bring up the treaty documents," she ordered. The holographic display changed to show the Terran Integration Accord, signed 52 years ago. The document was clear in its restrictions. Humans were permitted to colonize 12 specific systems, engage in limited interstellar trade, and maintain a defense force of no more than 200 vessels for system patrol duties. "According to our records," said Delegate Vorth from his hovering platform, "humans have never exceeded their fleet limitations. Our monitoring stations have confirmed regular compliance inspections." "Then explain this." Zixthara's voice cracked, like breaking crystal as she gestured toward the display. What they were looking at was impossible according to their understanding of human capabilities. The fleet assembled at the edge of the Sol system represented more industrial capacity than Earth should have been able to produce in 2 centuries, let alone 5 decades. High Counselor Maxon of the Silicon Hegemony processed the data through his quantum consciousness before speaking. "There is only one logical conclusion. The humans have been deceiving us from the beginning." The chamber erupted in a cacophony of alarm calls, chittering, and electronic protests from the various species. Zixthara raised her hand for silence, her form now pulsing with dangerous energy. "Contact Earth immediately. I want to speak with their highest authority." The communication array activated, sending faster-than-light signals toward the human home system, while they waited for a response. Zixthara reviewed everything they knew about humanity. Humans had appeared on the galactic stage 52 years ago when one of their primitive chemical-fueled vessels had been detected by a reptilian patrol. First contact had been handled according to standard protocols. The humans were evaluated, classified, and offered limited membership in the galactic community. They had seemed grateful for the opportunity. Their negotiator, an elderly human named Harrison Webb, had accepted every limitation placed upon them, without complaint. He had signed the accords with what appeared to be humble appreciation for being allowed to join the greater galactic civilization. In the decades that followed, humans had proven to be excellent workers. They mined asteroids with efficiency that impressed even the silicon hegemony. They manufactured components for galactic industry with precision that met crystalline standards. They transported goods through dangerous space routes with courage that earned respect from the warrior cultures, but they had always remained in their designated role. Tier 3 civilization, limited technology, restricted military capacity. Incoming transmission from Earth, announced the communication technician. The holographic display shimmered and resolved into the image of a human female. She appeared to be middle-aged by human standards, with short grey hair and calm brown eyes. She wore a simple blue uniform with silver insignia that none of the council members recognized. "This is Admiral Elena Vasquez of the Terran Defense Fleet," she said in clear, measured tones. "I understand you wish to speak with our leadership regarding recent fleet movements." Zixthara stepped forward, her crystalline form blazing with authority. "Admiral Vasquez, I am Chancellor Zixthara of the Galactic Trade Council. Our monitoring systems have detected massive fleet concentrations in your home system. This represents a clear violation of the Terran Integration Accord." The human's expression did not change. "I see. And what specific provisions of the Accord do you believe we have violated?" Article 7 clearly states that human military forces are limited to 200 vessels for system defense purposes. Zixthara replied sharply, "Our intelligence reports show over 2,000 ships currently assembled near Earth." "Admiral?" Vasquez nodded thoughtfully. "I understand your concern, Chancellor. However, I believe there may be some confusion about the nature of these vessels." "Confusion?" Commander Vissis interjected, his reptilian features twisting in anger. "Our sensors clearly identify them as military vessels with advanced weapon systems." "That is correct," Vasquez replied calmly. "They are indeed military vessels with advanced weapon systems." The admission sent another wave of agitation through the council chamber. Several delegates began speaking at once, their voices overlapping. In a chaos of accusation and demand, Zixthara's form flared brighter as she called for order. "Admiral, you have just admitted to a direct violation of galactic law. The Terran Integration Accord is a binding treaty that your species agreed to uphold." Chancellor Vasquez said, her voice carrying a strange undertone that made several council members uncomfortable. "I need to ask you a question. When was the last time you actually read the Terran Integration Accord?" The question was so unexpected that Zixthara hesitated. "The accord was signed 52 years ago. The terms are quite clear." "Yes, they are," Vasquez agreed. "But I wonder if you remember who signed that document on behalf of humanity." "Of course. Your negotiator was Harrison Webb, representing the Terran Colonial Authority." Vasquez smiled, and something about that expression made the chamber's temperature seem to drop. "That's correct. My grandfather, Harrison Webb, signed that accord on behalf of the Terran Colonial Authority. But Chancellor, I need to point out something that your legal experts apparently missed." The holographic display split, showing both Vasquez and a copy of the original accord document. As they watched, certain passages began to glow with highlighting. The Terran Colonial Authority was indeed limited to 200 vessels and 12 systems, Vasquez continued. But the Terran Colonial Authority was dissolved 38 years ago when Earth unified under a single planetary government. The Terran Defense Fleet operates under completely different legal authority. The silence in the chamber was absolute. Every delegate stared at the highlighted text, seeing for the first time the careful wording that had been overlooked for decades. Furthermore, Vasquez continued, the Accord specifically limited human expansion to 12 designated systems. We have scrupulously observed this limitation. However, it placed no restrictions on industrial development within those systems, nor on the construction of mobile assets such as spacecraft. Delegate Vorth's mechanical voice buzzed with confusion. You are suggesting this is a legal technicality. I am suggesting that your intelligence services have been watching the wrong organization for 5 decades, Vasquez replied. The Terran Colonial Authority maintained exactly 200 vessels for system patrol, just as the Accord required. The Terran Defense Fleet has been building its capacity independently, using resources extracted from our legally assigned systems and manufactured in our legally established facilities. High Counselor Maxson processed this information through multiple probability matrices before speaking. Even accounting for this legal distinction, the industrial capacity required to build such a fleet should have been detectable. Our monitoring stations would have recorded the energy signatures. Vasquez's smile grew wider. Would they? Your monitoring stations were positioned to watch for violations of the Accord. They tracked the activities of the Terran Colonial Authority very carefully, but the Accord only required us to allow inspection of TCA facilities. We were never required to report on separate industrial development. The implications hit the Council like a physical blow. For 50 years, they had been watching a deliberately limited organization, while the real military and industrial development happened beyond their observation. You have been preparing for war, Zixthara stated, her crystalline form now flickering between red and deep purple. We have been preparing for survival, Vasquez corrected. 52 years ago, my grandfather came to this council as the representative of a species that had just discovered we were not alone in the universe. You offered us a place in galactic civilization, but that place came with significant restrictions. We accepted those restrictions because we had no choice. She paused, and when she continued, her voice carried the weight of decades of hidden preparation. But we also learned something important about galactic civilization. We learned that might makes right. We learned that species are classified and restricted based on their perceived threat level. We learned that those who cannot defend themselves become servants to those who can. Commander This leaned forward, his predatory instincts activated by the shift in tone. Are you threatening this council? I am informing this council that humanity has graduated from Tier 3 status, Vasquez replied. As of today, Earth formally requests reclassification to Tier 1 status with full voting rights in galactic affairs. The request was audacious beyond belief. Tier 1 status was reserved for species that could project military power across multiple sectors and possessed technology equivalent to the galactic standard. It typically took species centuries to achieve such status. This is unacceptable, Zixthara declared. Tier status is determined by this council after careful evaluation. It cannot be simply requested. Then perhaps, Vasquez said, her calm demeanor never wavering, it is time for a demonstration. The communication ended abruptly, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. For several long moments, no one spoke as they processed what had just occurred. Finally, High Counselor Maxson's synthetic voice broke the quiet. Probability analysis suggests we have made a significant error in our assessment of human capabilities and intentions. Error. Commander Tice's voice was thick with anger. This is deception on a galactic scale. These humans have been lying to us for 50 years, have they? Ambassador Clearnox asked through her suit speaker. Or have we been seeing only what we expected to see? Zixthera's form was now cycling rapidly through different colors as she processed the implications. If the humans had indeed been building military capacity for 5 decades while remaining technically compliant with their treaties, it represented a level of long-term strategic planning that no species in the Council had ever demonstrated. "What are your orders, Chancellor?" asked the communication technician. Zixthera looked around the chamber at the assembled delegates. Each species had achieved their current status through conquest, diplomacy, or technological superiority. Now, they were faced with a species that had achieved military parity through deception and patience. "Send word to all member fleets," she commanded. "Full mobilization. If the humans want to demonstrate their worthiness for Tier 1 status, then they will face the combined might of the Galactic Trade Council." As the orders went out across the galaxy, none of the Council members realized they had just made the greatest mistake in galactic history. They had given humanity exactly what it had been preparing for all along. A chance to show the galaxy what humans could do when their survival was threatened. Asterisk. When humanity strikes back, the space around Proxima Station had never hosted such a gathering. Warships from 14 different species hung in formation like a metallic constellation, their combined firepower representing the greatest military force ever assembled in galactic history. Over 3,000 vessels of various designs filled the void. From the elegant crystal ships of Zixthara S, people to the brutal iron fortresses of the Silicon hegemony, Admiral Marcus Webb stood on the bridge of the TNS Defiance, studying the approaching alien armada through the massive viewport. At 63 years old, he had spent his entire adult life preparing for this moment. His weathered hands rested calmly on the command console as status reports flowed in from across the Terran fleet. "Sir," called Captain Torres from the tactical station, "enemy fleet is maintaining formation at 2 million kilometers. They appear to be waiting for us to make the first move." Webb nodded without taking his eyes off the alien ships. "Composition analysis. Confirmed 14 species, sir. Heavy emphasis on energy-based weapon systems and quantum shielding technology. Their battle doctrine appears to be based on long-range engagement with minimal ship-to-ship contact." This information did not surprise Webb. Human intelligence had been studying alien military tactics for decades, analyzing every recorded conflict and battle report they could acquire. The galaxy's advanced species had developed a very civilized approach to warfare, emphasizing technological superiority and minimal casualties. It was an approach that humans had never adopted. "Communication from the alien fleet, sir," announced Lieutenant Kim from the communications station. "Put it through." The main screen flickered to life, showing Chancellor Zixthera's crystalline form surrounded by the military commanders of the various species. Her translucent body glowed with angry red light, and the assembled alien leaders looked grimly determined. Admiral Webb Zixthera began, her voice resonating with authority. "I am prepared to offer you one final opportunity to withdraw your fleet and accept the terms of the original Terran Integration Accord." Webb stepped forward, his blue uniform bearing the simple insignia of Earth's unified command. Behind him, the bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency, their movements precise and purposeful. "Chancellor," Webb replied in a measured tone, "I appreciate your concern, but humanity's position remains unchanged. We formally request Tier 1 status with full voting rights in galactic affairs. Then you force us to demonstrate why such status cannot be simply taken," Commander Thesis interjected his reptilian features twisted with aggression. "Your species will learn the price of defying galactic authority." Webb's expression remained calm, but something shifted in his eyes that made several alien commanders unconsciously step backward from their screens. "Commander, this is," Webb said. "Quietly, before we begin, I want you to understand something. You have brought the combined military might of 14 species to intimidate 2,000 human vessels. You believe that superior numbers and advanced technology will ensure your victory." He paused, and when he continued, his voice carried the weight of absolute certainty. "You are about to learn why that was a mistake." The communication ended, and Webb turned to his crew. The transformation was immediate and startling. The calm, diplomatic officer vanished, replaced by a warrior who had trained his entire life for this moment. "All ships, this is Admiral Webb. Execute Battle Plan Omega. Show them what humans do when cornered." Throughout the Terran fleet, ships that had appeared to be maintaining a defensive formation suddenly exploded into motion. The human vessels moved with a coordination that defied every principle of space combat doctrine. Instead of forming neat battle lines or geometric patterns, they scattered like a swarm of angry insects, each ship following a seemingly random trajectory. On the bridge of the Crystal Harmony, Zixthara watched in confusion as the human fleet dissolved into apparent chaos. "Analysis," she demanded of her tactical officer. "Chancellor, their movements appear random. No identifiable pattern or strategic formation. They are moving at maximum acceleration toward our fleet, but their approach vectors make no tactical sense." This was exactly what Webb had counted on. Alien military doctrine was based on predictable formations and logical, strategic thinking. The idea that a fleet might deliberately embrace chaos as a tactic was beyond their understanding. "Sir," Captain Torres called out as alien energy beams began lancing through space, "enemy fleet is opening fire. Long-range energy weapons attempting to establish kill zones. Acknowledged. Begin evasive pattern Delta. Signal all vessels to initiate pack hunting protocols." The human ships responded to Webb's orders with fluid grace, their seemingly random movements suddenly revealing underlying purpose. Groups of 3 to 5 vessels converged on individual alien ships, using unpredictable approach vectors that made targeting nearly impossible. The first alien vessel to fall was a crystalline destroyer that found itself surrounded by 4 human corvettes. The alien ship's captain, trained in civilized warfare, attempted to maintain distance while his superior energy weapons carved space around the approaching humans. He never understood what happened next. Instead of matching his energy weapons with similar technology, the human ships closed to point-blank range and opened fire with kinetic weapons that should have been obsolete centuries ago. Solid projectiles, moving at incredible velocity, tore through the destroyer's elegant, crystal hull like bullets through glass. But the kinetic bombardment was only the beginning. As the crystalline ship's shields failed, one of the human corvettes actually rammed the alien vessel, its reinforced prow punching through the destroyer's hull like a spear through tissue. "Boarding action initiated," came the calm report from the corvette's captain. "Marines are inside the enemy vessel." Across the alien fleet, similar scenes played out as human tactics defied every expectation. Where alien commanders expected long-range dueling with energy weapons, they encountered close-range brawling with kinetic projectiles. Where they anticipated formal battle formations, they faced swarm attacks from multiple directions. Most disturbing of all, the humans seemed to actively seek close combat. Their ships were designed not just to fight at range, but to grapple with enemy vessels and board them directly. On the bridge of the reptilian dreadnought Vengeance, Commander This watched in growing alarm as human marines fought their way through his ship's corridors. The boarding had begun when a human assault craft had literally drilled through his vessel's armored hull, disgorging dozens of warriors in powered armor. Status report. These is demanded of his security chief. Sir, the humans are fighting with primitive kinetic weapons and chemical explosives. Our energy shields are useless against such crude technology. They are advancing toward the engineering section. Thesis could not understand it. His ship's defensive systems were designed to repel boarding parties armed with energy weapons and quantum disruptors. The idea that anyone would use gunpowder-based weapons in modern combat was absurd. It was also devastatingly effective. The human marines moved through his ship like a plague. Their tactics brutal and direct. They used explosives to breach blast doors, kinetic weapons to overwhelm defensive positions, and close combat techniques that were utterly alien to civilized warfare. Worse yet, they seemed to enjoy it. Sir, his communications officer called out, "We are receiving surrender requests from 7 different vessels. The humans are offering terms. Thesis struggled to process this information. In galactic warfare, surrender usually meant the complete destruction of the defeated vessel. The idea that the humans would offer terms to ships they had already crippled was unprecedented. On the main tactical display, the battle's progress was clear. The combined alien fleet, despite its numerical and technological superiority, was being systematically dismantled by human tactics. They could not counter or understand. Admiral Webb watched the battle unfold with grim satisfaction. 50 years of preparation had led to this moment. Every human crew member had trained for close-quarters combat. Every ship had been designed with boarding actions in mind. Every weapon system had been chosen for its effectiveness against advanced alien defenses. The galaxy's civilized species had developed warfare into an art form, emphasizing elegance and technological superiority. Humans had kept warfare as what it had always been for them, a brutal struggle for survival, where victory went to those willing to pay any price. Sir, Captain Torres reported, Alien Fleet Command is requesting communication. Put them through, Chancellor. Zixthera appeared on the main screen, her crystalline form now flickering between colors rapidly. Around her, the other alien commanders looked shaken and defeated. Admiral Webb, she began, her voice carrying none of its earlier authority. We request immediate cessation of hostilities. Webb studied the alien leader for several seconds before responding. Are you surrendering, Chancellor? We are requesting negotiation for terms of withdrawal. That was not my question, Webb replied coldly. Are you surrendering? The silence stretched between them as Zixthera processed the implications. Surrender meant accepting human terms completely. It meant acknowledging that their combined fleet had been defeated by a species they had considered primitive. Yes, she said finally. We surrender. Webb nodded slowly. Very well. All human vessels, cease fire. Maintain positions, but do not pursue fleeing enemy ships. He turned back to the screen, and when he spoke again, his voice carried the authority of absolute victory. Chancellor, these are our terms. Humanity is granted immediate Tier 1 status with full voting rights in galactic affairs. All restrictions on human expansion and military development are permanently removed. Earth will establish a permanent embassy on the Trade Council station with full diplomatic immunity. Zixthera's form flickered weakly as she processed the demands. These terms are acceptable. There is one more thing, Webb continued. Humanity formally requests the establishment of a new position within the galactic government. Director of Conflict Resolution, with authority to intervene in disputes between member species. The request was staggering in its implications. Webb was asking for the authority to police the galaxy's conflicts, backed by the military force they had just demonstrated. Admiral, Commander Visis interjected weakly, surely you cannot expect us to accept human oversight of galactic military affairs. Webb's smile was not reassuring. Commander, an hour ago you believed humans were a primitive species suitable only for manual labor. Your assessment was incorrect. I suggest you consider the possibility that your understanding of galactic military affairs might also need revision. The alien commanders looked at each other, seeing their own defeat reflected in each other's expressions. They had brought the combined might of 14 species to crush human ambitions, and instead had proven that human military doctrine was superior to their own. The position is acceptable, Zixtara said finally. Excellent, Webb replied. We look forward to working with all of you in building a more secure and prosperous galaxy. As the communication ended, Captain Torres approached Webb with a question that had been troubling him throughout the battle. Sir, why did we offer surrender terms? We could have destroyed their entire fleet. Webb looked out at the alien vessels, many of them damaged and drifting, their crews no doubt struggling to understand how they had been so thoroughly defeated. Captain, he said quietly, the goal was never to destroy them. The goal was to earn their respect. Fear can enforce obedience, but respect builds lasting peace. He turned back to his crew, seeing the pride and exhaustion in their faces. They had trained their entire lives for this battle, and they had won decisively. Besides, Webb added with a slight smile, now they know what happens when someone threatens humanity. That knowledge will serve us well in the years to come. As the Terran fleet began forming up for the journey home, human diplomats were already preparing for their new role in galactic affairs. The species that had once been restricted to 12 systems and 200 ships would now help shape the destiny of the entire galaxy. The aliens had made one mistake. They had assumed that primitive meant weak, that peaceful meant defenseless, and that compliance meant submission. Humanity had spent 50 years showing them how wrong they were. Asterisk.